Story 1. Anything related to a pet passing away, like the comic Was I a Good Boy? Or the Rainbow Bridge poem, always makes me tear up. I am blinking hard just typing this. I was flipping through a book of poems written by cats. While many were funny, there was one that talked about how the humans were sad because a cat was looking for his friend. He could smell him but couldn't find him, and I almost broke down in the humor section of Barnes and Noble. Even now, I have to watch a funny video or do something else, or I'll start thinking about it too much and end up crying. Story 2. See older couples still showing a lot of affection, simply enjoying each other's company and having a good time. Story 3. Thinking about my soul dog when she took her last breath on her ottoman, staring into my eyes as I told her I loved her and that she was the best girl. Truly hurts me, and I think about it multiple times a day, almost a year later. Story 4. They played a song at my friend's funeral. It was supposed to be a different track, but there was a mistake. Whenever that song comes on, I lose it and cry big, dumb tears. The song is Good Grief by Bastille, in case you were wondering. Story 5. I don't know if this is strange, but whenever I watch the Technoblade video about his passing, it instantly brings me to tears. Story 6. 5-minute commercials featuring abused animals are difficult to watch. I now change the channel or leave the room because I can't handle them. Story 7. Animal cruelty contrasts with individuals who go the extra mile to help others simply because they can. Story 8. Theoden's speech before the ride of the Rohirrim in The Return of the King. I hope to be that brave when my time comes. Death. Story 9. Empathy involves trying to understand what a person is feeling and experiencing by putting myself in their situation. I am not good at watching movies, shows, or documentaries, as I tend to become very emotional. Story 10. Seeing butterflies. I had a friend who lost his life 13 days after his 18th birthday, and without anyone mentioning it to one another, everyone memorialized him with tattoos. I have a tattoo of a pink butterfly for him. Rest in peace, Nathan. Story 11. My dad passed away 10 years ago. My best friend passed away 8 years ago. I'm pretty sure I'll never move past the anger stage of grief. I strongly oppose opiates. Story 12. The ending of Coco, when the grandmother dies, is very emotional. I love my great-grandmother deeply, and every day I fear losing her. She means everything to me. I just cannot imagine losing my grandmothers. Story 13. Men often don't cry. So when I see a grown man crying, it has to be something extremely devastating, and that is what gets to me. Story 14. I was running a 10-kilometer race on race day when I reached a point where I was really struggling. A man passed by, placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "You've got this." It was exactly what I needed to hear. That small gesture meant the world to me at that moment. It may seem like a silly reason to feel emotional, but I will never forget it. Thank you, kind stranger. Story 15. When I randomly think about someone I fell in love with but had to let go because I wasn't ready. Story 16. Thinking about how my mother and grandmother would react to my death makes me more hesitant. Story 17. I think about how my cats are getting older and will inevitably pass away. I often wonder which of the two brothers will go first. I feel emotional thinking about it. Story 18. My first girlfriend and the time we had together was something special. She left me 10 years ago, and since then, I have never felt the same way about love. Story 19. I rescued a cat a few years ago from a shelter. She was my first cat, and she was incredible. She loved me, was always excited to see me, and stayed by my side. During a time when I felt pretty alone, she became the best part of my day. At our first vet visit, I found out she had feline leukemia virus. She lasted a year and a half after that. Crushed me. I miss her every day. Story 20. Pictures of young soldiers in active battlefields and locations. The date or era of the pictures does not matter. They always bring me to tears. Story 21. Emotional Paul Giamatti every time. I will defend Lady in the Water just for his monologue towards the end. The man is a powerful channeler of grief. Story 22. The memory of when I was involved in a fight at the jail where I worked against a mentally ill inmate still haunts me. My first thought after the altercation was about my mother and how disappointed she would be. Just imagining her seeing my appearance with a concussion, contusions on the side of my head, and a cut on my eyebrow, knowing she would be crying, made me feel guilty. Story 23. I am thinking about my parents not being around. I am trying to appreciate them as much as possible while they are here. Story 24. Towards the end of Party of One by Brandi Carlile, by the time she sings I Am Yours, I am in an absolute puddle of tears. Story 25. Cats in the Cradle reflects my experience growing up without a father. There is a video of Mr. Rogers expressing his pride in me, despite my struggles and setbacks throughout my life. Story 26. Anyone talking about my grandma being deceased or thinking about my nieces not being tiny babies anymore brings a mix of emotions. I love to watch them grow and learn. It's a joyful cry. At one point, they were so tiny in my sister-in-law's belly, and now one is 7, painting pictures for my fridge, while the other is almost 3, excitedly talking about daycare and her friends. I also can't forget my nephew, who is now a teenager. I remember changing his diapers and dressing him in little outfits for photos. Story 27. Hearing taps still affects me deeply when I hear it. I was having a conversation in one room while it was playing on the TV in another. I didn't even notice at first, but tears had already started falling from my eyes. It took me a moment to realize why that happened. Story 28. The idea of my partner dying is overwhelming. In another post, someone mentioned that for every inch over 5 feet 11 inches someone is, you should shave 2 to 3 years off their life expectancy. Well, he is exceptionally tall, much taller than 5 feet 11 inches. I have never seen anyone as tall in real life, and I have never encountered anyone old who is that tall. It's terrifying. I have been crying on and off since then, trying to hide it quietly because I don't want him to worry. I can't think of a good reason for why I'm crying so much. I had to step away to finish writing this reply. I've always imagined that I would go first, given my poor genetics. I don't know how I would live without him. Story 29. I tend to feel very sad or emotional when other people do. For example, seeing someone cry can trigger me, especially at a funeral or when they talk about the death of a pet or a sick relative. I'm generally not an emotional person, at least not on the surface. I have definitely broken down while driving and singing along to sad songs, particularly those that express a father's pride in their child. I don't know why, but that theme has always affected me deeply. Story 30. I am pregnant, and for some reason, whenever I see videos of other women giving birth, I instantly feel like crying. It's something I cannot control, and I don't understand why. When I see an ambulance racing to the hospital with sirens, I can only imagine someone in that ambulance on the verge of dying, and I find it difficult to handle that idea. I truly cannot control my reaction to these situations. I have autism and struggle to understand the emotions I experience when I encounter the scenarios described above. It's really puzzling. Story 31. A tough-appearing man showing emotion. I rarely see my father emotional, so I'm assuming that has something to do with it. Story 32. Time of Your Life, Good Riddance, by Green Day. My mom says she wants this played at her funeral, so now I can only think about her passing whenever it is played. Story 33. Being diagnosed as infertile and later realizing that I cannot have children is a mercy for any future children I might have had. Story 34. When someone else is crying, whether it's in television, movies, or real life, it doesn't matter. Even if I can't relate to the situation, seeing tears of sadness always makes me tear up. It has to be genuine though, not a cry that feels insincere. Story 35. Seeing an animal that is sick, injured, or abused affects me every time. My throat is tight right now just thinking about it. Story 36. My father passed away about 1.5 years ago, and there are a few songs I try to avoid. Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga and Monsters by James Blunt. The former isn't as bad, and I can usually detach myself from the situation. However, I've been getting blindsided by the latter lately. My eyes well up immediately when I hear any part of the song, the lyrics, chorus, bridge, or even the lone piano at the beginning. It tears me apart every time, and I have to excuse myself. Story 37. Sad and wholesome moments in any TV show or movie can evoke strong emotions. When I'm on my period, I find myself tearing up even during the happier scenes. Story 38. Have you ever watched a parent cry from loss, grief, frustration, or heartbreak? Yes, I am sobbing like a toddler. Story 39. Nostalgia. Whenever I smell, remember, or see something from my childhood, I can't help but tear up. Story 40. The President of the United States is unapologetically leaving an innocent man in a foreign maximum security prison filled with murderous gang members, despite an order from the Supreme Court to return him. Who is next? Story 41. Realizing I am out of toilet paper after using the restroom is frustrating because it means I am going to lose my socks. Story 42. Dogs and cats saving people. People saving dogs and cats. There was a video of a man who was heartbroken about his dogs while wildfires raged nearby. A firefighter saved one of his dogs, but couldn't find the other one. Later, the news captured the moment he found his other dog. The dog was so happy to see him that it squeezed under the fence to reach him. The man started running around, cheering that both his dogs were healthy and safe. In another video, a tornado blew through several houses. A woman was being interviewed about how she wished she could find her dog. The interviewer spotted the dog immediately after, and the woman started crying as the crew helped free her dog from the rubble. She said, "At least my dog is okay." Then there was an elderly man who called his cell phone ring-a-ling. His cat learned this term, and one day he fell in the bathroom and couldn't get up, feeling he might die there. He called for his cat, saying ring-a-ling, and the cat pushed the phone into his hand. There was also a remarkable story of a dog that performed effective CPR on a man who had a heart attack for 4 hours. Paramedics stated he would have died without his dog's intervention. Additionally, a cat kept an abandoned baby warm until help arrived. The cat even followed the ambulance to the hospital, where it was taken in. Fortunately, the cat was able to reunite with the boy shortly before it passed away, and a tiny memorial was created for it. In a story involving recent hurricanes, 2 children saved money to adopt a dog that was about to be euthanized. When their house collapsed, the dog found the boy and barked until firefighters rescued him and airlifted him to the hospital, allowing him to walk away unharmed. During an interview, the child said, "So you saved the dog?" To which the boy replied, "Yeah, and then he saved me." There was also a dog that detected his 17-year-old brother having a stroke. The dog made enough noise to alert the parents, who got him help in time, allowing the boy to make a full recovery. In another incident, a man who took a bad fall in a rural area sent his dog to get help. The dog caught the attention of a police officer, who followed the dog and rescued the man. In a separate story, a dog tried to protect his family from an intruder and was stabbed. His family sought help from various veterinarians until they reached the rescue from which they had adopted the dog. Despite his heart stopping twice, the veterinarian saved him, and when he fully recovered, his father threw him a party with a mariachi band. There was a cat that saved her owner's life by biting her husband until he checked on his wife, who had dangerously low blood sugar and was on the verge of slipping into a diabetic coma before they called an ambulance. Another cat was overly attached to a woman who had a cesarean section. The cat kneaded her scar until it began to bleed, prompting her to go to the hospital. Doctors discovered she had a blood clot, and the cat's kneading helped prevent any damage. Countless stories exist of animals sensing when their humans are in distress and intervening to prevent them from committing suicide. These tales never fail to make me cry. Also, I remember a personal story. My dearly departed cat once saved my life when I was home alone and started choking. He kicked me in the back with enough force to dislodge the food. I will always love you, my baby Oscar. Story 43. My mother had dementia. It came upon her slowly, so we didn't know, but her partner didn't tell anyone that she was having trouble. When she got bad enough to forget my birthday, I started to wonder if something was wrong. My brother became really worried, and we had someone check in on her. It was terrible. She had been kept in our old trailer, which was completely derelict. One end of it had collapsed, creating a pool of rainwater and debris descending from the ceiling to eye level, trapped in the plastic moisture barrier. The floor in most of the trailer had disintegrated from moisture damage. The only room still intact was the bedroom at the other end, where we found Mom standing next to the bed, head hung low, mumbling gibberish. She barely recognized me. It was horrible. We got her out of there, placed her in elder care, and later in a privately run home, where she was finally safe and comfortable. I visited her regularly. She eventually passed peacefully in her sleep. All I can keep thinking about is how one of our last coherent conversations was when she called me one day and, after a little chit-chat, asked if she had done all right. After the divorce, where Dad got 90% of everything, after fighting through corrective open-heart surgery for a hidden defect that should have killed her 20 years earlier, after working and attending college full-time to build a career good enough to raise her boys, after learning how to repair her van herself because she couldn't afford to take it to the shop after all that, she asks me if she did all right as a mother. I spent nearly an hour telling her the truth, and I cry for her. For that question she asked me after all she gave and all she did, and how she had my back at every turn, even when they had to crack her ribcage open to stitch up the inch-wide hole in her heart. She wasn't sure she had done enough. I cry because, at the very least, she was still there when I graduated with my degree, and she was still there to meet my wife, smile at her with approval and say, "We burned our bras for you." At the end, in that memory ward, when another patient rolled up and asked me in a very polite and careful tone, "What does she have?" My mom lifted her head. You could see her clearly getting exasperated at this lady and, in a strong voice, told her, "Cancer." I laughed and told her, "I love you, Mom." She managed, "I love you too." And she went the next morning. I cried because, at the very least, I did get to tell her back then that, yes, she had done an amazing, incredible, awesome job of being my mother. I got to tell her when she could hear it from me and understand that, yes, I really felt that way. And because I really miss her. Story 44. Very tender-hearted, so it doesn't take much to affect me. Seeing an elderly person dining alone always touches my heart. I'm sure they are fine, but it gets me every single time. Just the thought of someone being lonely is overwhelming. I felt this way since I was little, observing acts of kindness, no matter how small. I also think about missing a loved one, certain songs, movies, or places that remind me of them. Story 45. My wife died when my son Jake was born. I didn't even get time to process it. I was thrust instantly into taking care of Jake alone. We had saved enough to live on for the first year without either of us working, but it flew by so quickly that by the time I realized I needed to start working again, all of my savings had been used up. After a month of countless applications and interviews, I finally got a job. Then I got another one. By the third job, I realized I wasn't going to be able to afford to give Jake the childhood he deserved. I still tried to make it work. I spent hours in the supermarket calculating if I was going to be able to eat that night, silently dealing with dental pain because I couldn't afford to get it fixed. I sold my car and took the bus so I could buy him a gift for his 6th birthday. I counted every cent, ignoring bills piling up. I became severely depressed and thought about suicide all day, except for when I got to see Jake. He was the only thing that kept me anchored. Every second spent fighting for survival was worth it when I saw him smiling. When he turned 16, his school was planning a trip to Hawaii for his entire year. He ran to me the second I got home and showed me the permission slip, jumping with excitement. My eyes fixed on the price, $3,000, not including meals. I let out a giant exhale, deciding it was time to tell him. I sat him down and started to explain how there was no way I could afford it. He looked down and quietly said, "I know." That broke me. I know he's a smart kid, but I was hoping I was still keeping up the lie. He's 24 now, living in his own apartment that he shares with his fiancée. He's done much better than I did, and I still break down crying every time I remember his face that day. It looked guilty, like he was admitting to lying to me. But I was the one who lied and the one who failed to give him the one thing I wanted too, the thing he deserved more than anything. I had a normal childhood. Why couldn't he? Story 46. When I was young, there was a great doctor who owned a clinic near where I lived. He was a famous surgeon in a hospital before deciding to become a family doctor. He had superior medical skills and was able to diagnose and cure any illness I had. He was also a caring doctor who went beyond his duty to care for his patients. There was once an instance when I was sick and my mother took me to see him. He noticed that my mother had cuts on her hand and immediately applied medicine for her without asking for additional charges. Many of his patients had similar experiences to mine. He even visited his patients if they were hospitalized. However, one day I heard that he had passed away due to a rare form of cancer with a poor prognosis. It has been over 15 years since his passing, and I still miss him. Story 47. How I had a loving cat that was part of my family before I gave him away. I was rude because he was nice to me. I saw him when he was just a kitten with his litter mates. At night, he wouldn't always be able to sleep in my parents' room. I was at my lowest point in life. 2023 was the worst year ever. I had obsessive-compulsive disorder. I wouldn't pet him when he wanted it. At night, he couldn't sleep in my parents' room, and he would come to me while I was playing a zombie shooting game called Call of Duty. Black Ops Cold War. I would ignore him when he jumped up on the television. I wouldn't pet him and I didn't show him love. He would sleep on the table with other cats that weren't treated so badly because he didn't want to be alone. When I was done with video games, I would walk past him into my room, which felt like hell. He played with the bottle in the morning until he stopped completely. It was extremely loud. One of the worst days of my life was when I heard he tore the toilet paper, and there was a hole in my parents' door because my brother broke it. My parents didn't understand why he was behaving this way. He knew I would ignore him because, unlike spiders, cats and dogs feel love and connection. I made him sad and probably made a cat cry. My brother was in jail, and I was supposed to take care of my cat. I carelessly watched as my other cat, Gray Boy, who has now passed away, snuck up on my cat while I was playing video games. My cat had a cool look on his face. He knew Gray Boy was coming, but it wasn't a happy look. When Gray Boy pounced on him from behind, his reaction was one of surprise and shock. In 2023, my lowest point ever, I had obsessive-compulsive disorder and a habit of throwing up food. I always wanted to be asleep before morning when I would eat. I would make myself sleep at certain times, and my mind didn't work right when I woke up early. That is why the mornings were never good. The cat's name was Whitey. I would call him Big Whitey. I want to get a tattoo of his name, maybe on my left shoulder or on my back, along with a dragon. I think about him, crying, wishing I could imagine life better if it were possible. I think, what if I just made sure I have the best day possible tomorrow, and just pet him, turn off the game, take him to my room and sleep? I wish I could have done this instead of giving that cat away. I loved him, but I feel that he is okay, smiling and crying tears of joy in a ball with his new owners. That is the last thing I want to type up. It's 2025 now. I am 18 years old now. Better. I think a little context is needed. Story 48. People ask me if I am okay after something bad happens. I used to work in a bank on the front lines at the turn of the century. Some office workers would vent their frustration at me for having to stand in line during their lunch breaks and would scream and swear. The next person to come to the window would always ask if I was okay, and it took everything in me not to burst into tears. Story 49. There is a specific version of the Hymn of the Fate in Final Fantasy X that brings me to tears. It is the one where everyone across Spira sings to placate sin. You can hear the pain and hope in their voices, and it moves me every time. Story 50. Maybe it's a product of being older, but watching shows from my childhood, like if I watch an episode of Cowboy Bebop or FLC, brings me back to that time. It might be because I'm older and it was a long time ago, or perhaps my childhood was very lonely. I'm not really sure why, but such is life, right? Story 51. I miss my 2 brothers, grandparents, a few friends, and my dog, all of whom have passed away. I am also thinking of any animal in pain. Story 52. Allergies, specifically pollen, are affecting me. I was participating in a challenging gaming session yesterday, and my eyes were streaming with tears. The situation is worsening. Story 53. Thinking about cathartic moments of innocence, peace, and kindness in the midst of death and patriarchal destruction. Story 54. When I see parents performing heroic acts for their children, I cry out of some primal instinct. Story 55. Thinking about my life and looking at my childhood pictures, I see how much she had to endure all along. Story 56. Thinking of my mom. I went to Walgreens yesterday for a birthday card and noticed the cute Easter cards. I thought, Mom would love it if I sent her one. She loves getting letters, so let me grab one. Moments later, at the self-checkout line, I was struggling to hold back tears with the heel of my palm. It's been almost 3 months since she passed. Story 57. The thought of losing my parents to death, whether from old age or in other circumstances, is difficult to bear. They are now in their 70s. Story 58. Not me, but my best friend starts to cry every time he hears the song that was playing when his father passed away from cancer. Story 59. The thought of my dad bleeding to death, alone on the floor, and his dog having to eat his decaying corpse for 2 weeks to survive. Story 60. I believe that those who claim a breakup is trivial are either very young or have not yet experienced significant loss, such as losing a parent. Story 61. Looking back at my life, I reflect on my experiences and remember where I am now. I feel alone, financially struggles, and spiritually broken. Story 62. My husband moved out on his own at the age of 16 to finish high school in one place after his father received orders to a new station. This past Christmas, his father fell ill, and we were scared we might lose him. However, he recovered so well that he left physical rehabilitation early. He moved in with us on a Tuesday, and my husband talked about all the barbecues, dinners, and holidays he finally got to have with his parents now that he was settled. His father died suddenly of a heart attack in front of him just 4 days later on March 1st. Feels utterly unfair, and I cry every time I think about it. Story 63. Loss of love occurs when people die or when relationships end. The thing about love is that the deeper you dive into it, the more attached you become, and the more painful the loss can be. I console myself sometimes by thinking that the pain of loss hurts only because what I experienced was real love, and that makes life worth it for me. No amount of money or material possessions can recreate that magic. It only happens with deep communication and understanding between both people and what they shared. I truly love some individuals whose lives have taken different paths. I do not need to possess their time and energy. I simply know that when we were together, we had a good friendship, and if we reunited, we would pick up right where we left off. But I really miss my dad. Story 64. Thinking about the dogs I had before my current ones. I lost 2 of them in 2015 and the third in 2011. I also remember the happiest years of my life and marriage, which coincided. Story 65. Knowing I will be disabled for the rest of my life and realizing the limitations on what I can physically do or try. Story 66. Listening to Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga always affects me deeply. Once, while I was driving my mom to get flowers for her house, this song played on the speaker. We were having a great time, but the song made me cry even then. Story 67. My son, now 8 years old, has had spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy from shortly after birth. Many things bring me to tears, such as relevant commercials, watching other children play, and thoughts about his difficult life ahead. It's a long list. Story 68. Seeing a post or article about animal abuse or those videos showing rescued and rehabilitated animals deeply affects me. It hurts my soul. Story 69. Talking about the passing of my mom, I was there with her and I know every detail. It has been 5 years and I still sob. Story 70. Animal abuse truly affects me deeply. Many animals live in horrific conditions until their last moments. I cannot bear to watch predators kill innocent, gentle creatures, like when a few lions cut the throat of a giraffe, or when a large Komodo dragon slowly swallows a defenseless goat. I always avoid those videos because they hurt me so much. A close friend of mine is married to an Indonesian woman, and when he visits there once a year, he tells me that they eat everything they catch, even street dogs. They capture them, tape their mouths shut, and kill them at home to put them on the barbecue. Story 71. Animal or child cruelty is distressing. I don't need to witness it. Just the thought of it being committed evokes a strong emotional response. Story 72. This proposal video always brings me to tears for some reason. It is just so wholesome. Story 73. Where my parents are buried, there is a children's section in the cemetery. I cannot walk through there, reading the epitaphs without shedding some tears. Story 74. My grandmother passed away last year due to a stroke. Even though we did not get along while she was alive, she is still my grandma. It's hard to believe that she is gone, but she will never be forgotten. Adjusting to a new reality has been difficult. She is no longer here, and we were used to having her around. To this day, it is still shocking to me. It seems like it was just yesterday. Story 75. Certain songs remind me of my parents. When a song they liked plays, I am instantly brought to tears. Story 76. Those dog videos that show the dog's first day compared to their last make me cry every time. Similarly, videos of parents posting about their children who have passed away also bring me to tears every time. Story 77. Thinking about past and current pets and their passing. Listening to Round Here by Counting Crows. Story 78. Just about everything. I'm sensitive and I'm okay with it. A good book, an inspiring quote, a beautiful song, or a sweet moment can touch me deeply. I also appreciate the sad moments. This is why I enjoy happy endings and stories of redemption so much. My heart can only handle sunshine and rainbows at the end. Story 79. If you want to experience some happy tears, watch videos of dogs reuniting with their owners when they come home from deployment. It gets me every time. Story 80. I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me. Story 81. Burt Reynolds saying goodbye to Judith in All Dogs Go to Heaven. He wasn't just saying goodbye in the movie, but to her too. It makes me cry anytime I hear it. Story 82. When I experience sincerity and comfort from someone who loves me, I can never really cry. Although I am a 25-year-old male, I haven't really cried since I was about 13, even when I have been in love and shed some tears. I was sent away for 7 years and didn't cry during that time. I might tear up and shed a single tear or maybe half a tear over something. But to be honest, I think I need to reach a breaking point and let my emotions out. I just haven't found the right person to help me get there, and I can't seem to do it myself psychologically. However, I know that when I truly feel love, I can nearly achieve that release. Everything I have gone through feels more manageable because it seems this person forgives me or simply doesn't care and continues to love me. This is especially true when I look into her eyes and connect with her heart. Story 83. There is nothing I can think of that would instantly bring me to tears. However, if there is a buildup of emotion and moral injustice issues like in Happy Feet, The Iron Giant, or Pokemon the first movie, then yes, I will cry. If you ask me about something that will instantly make me angry, it's when I believe someone has wronged my children, family, pets, or someone close to me. I tend to get upset and hold a grudge for a long time. Story 84. Rory McIlroy has finally completed the career Grand Slam, expressing all the pent-up emotion from the last decade. Story 85. My dad gave away my dog without telling me, and then I found out he ran away from his new owners. I think about him out there running, trying to find me. This was almost 40 years ago, but when I think about him looking for me, I find tears flowing. I would say that's the only thing. Other than that, I feel empty inside. Story 86. Hearing the first cries of a newborn baby seems so simple and should be joyous. But when my son was stillborn, that silence felt so heavy, and it really stuck with me. Even after having my daughter, who is healthy and cried just like she should, I instantly tear up every time I see anything related to birth when that cry comes. Story 87. Someone is asking if I am okay when I am trying so hard not to cry, especially when it is something minor that should not be such a big deal. Story 88. Seeing a strong man cry can be touching, regardless of gender. It can evoke deep emotions, especially for those with empathy. Failing to achieve a high mark on a test can also be disheartening and may bring back memories from the past. Story 89. Whenever my dad hugs me and tells me sweet things, and whenever I take care of my mom, I did her hair today and she was like a teenager, all excited. I think it's the realization that they won't be here forever. Story 90. The thought of my past pet, my parents passing, my fiancé passing, and losing my 2 cats is overwhelming. Story 91. The thought of my senior dog, a 13-year-old French bulldog, and being with him today knowing we are closer to the end than the beginning is heart-wrenching. I love him, and I know that day will truly break me. Story 92. The bagpipes at a military or police funeral cause me to break out in tears, but I can't change the channel or look away. Story 93. Any kind of dog adoption videos that show the dogs waiting to be taken home or display how scared and traumatized animals are due to the horrific abuse inflicted by humans. Story 94. I am thinking about my late father. He passed away less than 2 months ago, and it hurts more than I ever imagined it would. Story 95. Watching videos of soldiers coming home and their children and pets jumping into their arms with uncontained joy gets me every time. Story 96. Seeing someone about to cry or hearing people discuss something emotional evokes strong feelings in me. Story 97. When I see videos of children in Palestine, having lived through that same ordeal myself, I can relate, and it destroys me every time. Story 98. I am going to visit my great-aunt. Her husband recently passed away, and he was my favorite uncle. Despite having diabetes and suffering from nerve issues in his hands and feet, he would always be the first to get up and give everyone a warm hug. He was loved by all. Story 99. On YouTube, there are videos of people receiving hearing implants, and you can watch the doctors activate the implants, allowing the individuals to hear for the first time. It gets me every time. Story 100. I cannot get back the childhood I spent pretending to be someone I wasn't to please others. Story 101. Animals dying or having passed away. Any harm to animals is distressing. I find it almost more difficult than harm to people, although I have been very sad about people as well. It is exponentially harder when it comes to animals. Story 102. Sudden screaming or shouting can occur if it is aggressive. I mean sudden literally. Not much happens if it builds up slowly. Story 103. I start thinking about my children, with a sweet smile on my face as they lay in their beds sleeping safely. Then I begin to think about losing one of them. My mind goes into overdrive, and I start imagining all kinds of scenarios. I envision the phone call and the emptiness. I end up in tears. Story 104. Anytime one of my children was on stage for any reason, I would immediately feel emotional. Story 105. My grandmother passed away midway through my pregnancy. I gave birth just a few weeks ago, and I have her picture hanging in my baby boy's nursery. I often think about how excited she was to meet him and that she never got that chance. Story 106. This video shows people coming home from the military and hugging their dogs for the first time in over a year. Story 107. I found out I was pregnant on the 20th anniversary of my dad's passing. Feels like he sent me this baby. I only discovered the news last week, so I have been unexpectedly emotional. Story 108. My husband told me he wants the song Dust in the Wind played at his funeral, so I cannot listen to that song knowing what it will represent one day. If my husband dies before me, it will be one of the worst days of my life, unless our children outlive us. Story 109. There is a scene in an early episode of Hill Street Blues where Captain Furillo persuades one of his detectives, who is struggling with alcohol addiction, to attend Alcoholics Anonymous. The detective resists and resents the suggestion but eventually goes. When he introduces himself to the group, the captain, whom he disliked for being perfect and judgmental, speaks up to welcome him. He is struggling with addiction too. It is a raw and beautiful moment, and the detective's response is amazement and deep respect. It resonates with me. Story 110. Someone else was crying, with real tears. My cousin received a sentimental birthday gift from his siblings yesterday at his birthday party, and he started crying, and so did everyone else. Story 111. My dad, a professional in information technology, had to go to the hospital in late January. Within about 8 hours, he was moved from the emergency room to the intensive care unit, which is when my older brother informed the rest of the family, my mom, younger brother, and me. By the time we arrived to visit, he was already unconscious. When the prognosis was still hopeful, I took a picture of him in his bed, surrounded by numerous medical screens and digital readouts. My brothers asked what I was doing, and I said, well, he spent the past 40 years in front of as many screens as he could fit on his desk. I just think he'll get a kick out of this when he wakes up. But he never woke up, and he died a couple of days later. So now I have this awful picture on my phone that breaks me whenever I scroll past it. But I can't delete it because it's the last picture of my dad. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.